This is a gap recap video for the week of January 22nd through the 26th. Previously, I talked about 13 stocks that had some gaps to the upside and to the downside. So I will recap that for you. Hi everyone, it's Dow on the Dow. First up is NEO. We ended the week at $6.14. I'll go through price in a different video, but back to the gaps. 3 of them closed this past week. And this one closed to the upside at roughly $6.27. This one to the downside at $5.99. And this one closed out right here at roughly $6.07. So we had quite a few swing trades within this week that you could have participated in. Now, the next gap that you need to be aware of to the upside is right here, beginning at 7.05, closes out at 7.16. I've been tracking this one since the week of the 16th. Still in play, and there are many other gaps to the north side on NEO because, as you know, we've tanked over the last several weeks and several months, but at least that's something to look forward to should we turn around. But still, this channel is going downward, so just anticipate some more price movements to the south side. The next one is Sofi. This gap closed to the upside at 7.69, as well as this one at 7.87, but you can see the channel is still going downward as well. The next gap to look out for takes us to $8.46, which I have tracked since January the 11th. Still in play, but unfortunately, we're still going down with Sofi. We've been taking a beating. I previously bought this at $8, and as we continued to go down, once I realized we were going to pop back up, I did sell out prematurely, but still, I'm up 1.2%. I still have shares that I bought roughly in the $6 range, but I'm not ready to sell off those shares yet. And other gaps remain to the upside as well, but we're not in the channel, not even in the zone, but something to be aware of. The next one is Tsly. As you know, Tesla tanked after earnings, and Elon made a comment about where he sees prices going and sales going, and sometimes I just think he should just shut his mouth. But nonetheless, he is brilliant, and I do love him. And I love it because he does speak the truth. All right, we ended the week at 873 on Tsly. To the north side, there's a gap that formed that will take us to 974. But the gap that I was originally tracking is this one that takes us to 1023. We're not close, not even in the channel, but again, something to be aware of to the north side. I will give price targets to the south side later. Next one is Pfizer. We ended the week at 27.47. This gap developed. So you want to keep track of that. 28.33 to the north side. And it looks like earnings is coming up on the 30th. And prices can get very volatile with earnings. They could come out with a fantastic earnings report and this stock will tank, or the opposite can happen. You just never know. And the next gap up takes us to 30.35 that I've been tracking for quite some time. Okay, not in the channel. This is going to be the next one to keep on your radar. And this gap to the south side still remains in play. And that takes us to 27.06, and don't forget about this one. That takes us down to 26.61. I think I bought some right here. This is my line usually in pink where I mark it out for my purchases because I am tracking so many stocks. At 26.45 is when I bought in, and this is for my mom. So if we get down to this level and even below that, I will definitely buy in and dollar cost average for her. Next one, Exelon. See this bounce at support. We went up and then the gap opened to the downside, so that closed out. So that's good. It's no longer a threat to our accounts to the downside unless you like to go short. But majority of people go long versus short although you play to the short side as well. All right, that will take us to 35.57 and then another one above that and another one above that as well. But right here is the next target. Altria Group. Note the bounce at support and support here as well. The next gap to look for takes us out to 40.72. This gap developed this week and closed out to the downside. Let me mark it for you. Right there. It finished out on Friday. The next one is SLB. Look at this nice upward run here since I've talked about it. But some gaps to the south side are still in play because we ripped up. That developed a gap. So to the south side, this one will be something to be aware of. But I'm not tracking for the purposes of this gap, but this is a new one. And then this one takes us to 48.78, but we're not in that channel. This gap is something I've been tracking since Monday the 8th. It finally closed out. Right here. And note this gap ripped up and there was a gap to the downside but quickly closed out. And there's another gap to the upside that I've been tracking that will take us to 56.39. But let me delete that because that is no longer something to look forward to the upside. Note the sell-off at resistance here. Oxy is the next one, nice upward channel. Let's take a look. The two gaps here closed out this week. This one I talked about previously from the week of the 19th. This one touched right here. So no longer in play to the upside, but note the sell-off here at resistance, resistance, resistance. And this one is still in play now to the downside. We went up, so this will be a threat to our accounts to the downside, a landmine here. But to the north side, since we are in an upward channel right there, 58.89 to the upside. That's an old price target that I just got to take a look at. The next one is BABA. This little gap developed, as you can see right here, to the upside, closed out to the downside. I'll mark it for you just in case you're not familiar with how these work. I'd like to turn on my magnet. Okay, we went up, so then I anticipate price to go down, and we did hit right there. All right, this gap also closed out that I've been tracking for how long here? Since the 5th. So I will extend that out. We had multiple gaps closed to the upside. And that closed out at 74.64, no longer in play. We got some good news from the Chinese government about trying to turn things around and their economy, and BABA ripped up to the north side. So this one is still in play. That will take us to 76.54. And we've got some other ones too. I think that I was tracking. Yeah, this one. And that was the last one, I believe. Nope, sorry. There are more. So I'll take it one gap basically at a time, or two at a time. Now to the south side, this one is still in play. But this gap, sometimes I have to move this white line here. So this one touched. It gets wonky here, right here. So this one is done as well. Move that. All right, we had one gap there, this gap closed too, and this one we are looking for. I think that's it. I'll clean this up a little bit later. The next one is Sbux. I don't want to go too long on this. Nobody watches, for one, and two, it's getting long. Actually, what do we have here? All right, this gap closed out already, right here the previous week, but we've got a gap right here. Did we touch? Looks awfully close. But I think it's still in play. Yeah, when you look very closely, it did not touch to the south side. This gap, I'll have to show this to you on a different time frame, but this gap is still in play as well. That will take us to 90.65. So these two gaps are pretty close. And this gap closed as well, like I mentioned there. Excuse me there. All right, and this gap to the upside is still in play as well. That takes us to 97.64. So a couple of gaps to the downside, but we're not in that channel, not in the zone, and neither are we for the upside potential. So I'll give you price targets later, as I mentioned. Nike will be the next one. This gapped up this week, so I will anticipate a gap down. That will take it to $188. But if we go to -2 standard deviations, that'll take care of that gap anyway. Note the bounce here at support. And then this one also opened up this week and fortunately closed this week as well. That's a swing up and a swing down all in one week. So this gap, we are still tracking to the upside. That will take us to $105.03. And then this previous one that I tracked, many gaps, but we'll just concentrate on this one for now. That will take us to 105. All right. ORCL, some good news on ORCL this week. This gap that I have been tracking, this big one that started at 104.89, finally closed out at 114.83. Yay. Oh, I marked it off. That should be 114.90. If I want to be precise and show you what I did last time. Well, not last time, the first time I marked it out. All right. We are in a nice upward channel. On the 5-minute time frame, we touched right. Wait a second here. Sometimes when you do this, oops, take off my magnet. See how wonky that got? extend it, and it touched right 114.90. Right there. So this gap to the upside is done. And it began, as I mentioned here, at 104.89. This gap developed this week. We gapped up, so expect price to come down to reality. And that will take us to roughly 111.19. Now, when did this gap start? I've been tracking this gap since December 12th. Wow. All right, the gaps to the south side. Now this one took us to 104.80. See, it doesn't look like it really touched, but this one touched. So this gap is no longer a threat. To the south side. Yeah, I was just looking. All right, that's it. I'm gonna finish this video out. I was just thinking, is that done? And it is done. Touched right over here as we went up. All right. Oracle is the only one for this week that closed out the gap, so I will continue my gap and go trades for next week and give you some price targets. Thank you so much for watching.